let's move up to the Big Ten. Let's talk about the Michigan Wolverines. A lot of doubt at the beginning of the year. If last year was a fluke season for the Wolverines making it into the college football playoffs, obviously once they got there, they didn't stand a chance. You head into this year, you think Cade McNamara is going to be your quarterback. JJ McCarthy hops in and becomes a very serviceable quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He has become a solid positional player at that spot and has taken Michigan to not only head into Iowa City and win against a top five killer in the Hawkeyes, but win impressively. Actually, put on quite a show last week against Iowa. What I want to know, Steve, does Michigan have what it takes to win the Big Ten and appear in the college football playoffs? I didn't talk about Ohio State yet because we know how Ohio State is a monster of a football team this year. I would say it's probably the best offense in the country, and I think that it's hard to even have a debate on that discussion right there. I think Ohio State really has a top-notch offense. Michigan against Ohio State, we'll see it soon. Do they have the opportunity to defeat and take over the Big Ten once again?
I don't think they have a choice. I mean, they have to beat Ohio State. There's not going to be two teams from the Big Ten in the FBS playoff. Do they have the talent? Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the greatest thing watching McCarthy is that he's a game manager. He's a very talented quarterback, but he manages the drives. And he himself seems to be able to make, even though I know most of the plays are coming from the sidelines, he seems to be able to react once a play starts going into motion and say, okay, look, they're not giving us this. Can I find another receiver? Should I dump it out to a safety valve, to a quorum, or whoever it's going to be? He seems to be a good decision maker. He knows when to tuck the ball and run it. He knows when to throw it away. So that's huge. I mean, that's going to have to be there when they do play Ohio State. I think a lot of the poo-pooing of Michigan boils down to the coach again. Just like, I was making fun of Lane Kiffin, which is an easy cheap shot, really, making fun of Lane Kiffin. But there are a lot of people that just don't like Jim Harbaugh. I'm one of them. So when Michigan is good, I love the players, but it's like, but Jim Harbaugh's going to find a way to take the credit for this. I mean, I'm sure. So I'm waiting for him to say, "Well, Blake Corum has blossomed in my system, and I know how to." That's going to come eventually. So I think that's the problem with Michigan. They're hard to root for. You could say that about Nick Saban. With Alabama, nobody wants to root for Alabama. And when Urban Myers was at Ohio State, you definitely didn't want to root for Ohio State. Michigan, the program, the recruits, kids still want to come to Michigan. Even when they're in a down cycle, they want to play at Michigan because you're going to have those big crowds and you're going to be on TV all the time, not just a Big Ten market. You're going to be on national TV. You're going to probably go to a bowl, even if you're not as deserving as others. But it boils down to Michigan or Ohio State. Both of those teams, they have to win that game because if they don't, they're not going to be in the playoff. They'll be in a New Year's Bowl, but they're not going to be in the national title conversation anymore once they lose that game.
And that's a Week 12 football game. That's basically the Big Ten championship. If the Big Ten didn't have conference or divisions inside conferences, we might be seeing the same game 2 weeks in a row if that was the case right now, because this is the top two teams in the Big Ten. So this is really, in my mind, who wins that game will head off and play a team in the Big Ten West who probably doesn't stand a chance against either of them. My thought process here, first of all, quick little shotgun question is: do you think Week 12, Michigan at Ohio State, is that a battle of two undefeated teams?
My head says yes. Logic dictates it's going to be two undefeateds.
Yeah.
Can I see what either Ohio State or Michigan lose a game that nobody anticipates that they're going to lose? I can see it, but I really, with any confidence, I can't pick a Big Ten team to say these guys are going to upset either Ohio State or Michigan.
Yeah.
I
Both of
really don't.
Both the teams' only big other competitor left on their schedule is Penn State, and we saw Penn State really didn't look well last week. Now Michigan does play Michigan State, and even though Michigan State is still down, they've had their number in the past, right? However, Iowa's had Michigan's number in the past, and Michigan took care of Iowa. Then you look at Ohio State; they also have Maryland on the schedule. We've seen Maryland on some up and up at one time, and they still also have to play Iowa, but they do play in Ohio State on that game. When I look at Michigan, I think, by the way, I agree with you. I think this is a battle of undefeateds. I think they take care of. I think they take care of Michigan, or I'm sorry, I think they take care of Penn State. They do also play Illinois in Week 11. I think Illinois is a really good football team, but I think that's one of the losses that Illinois takes. Watch out for Illinois in the Big Ten West, by the way. Let me put that out there. I think they have a really strong opportunity. People talk about Minnesota, talk about Purdue. Don't sleep on Illinois. Not only did Kansas break their drought for the top 25, I think Illinois is going to do that sometime this year as well. But okay, Michigan. Let's get back to that conversation. We think that in week 12, we're going to see a battle of undefeateds to take on and make it to the college football playoffs. Basically, that's what's going to be at stake in that football game. We see a fantastic quarterback on Ohio State side in that offense. What about on Michigan's side? Can JJ McCarthy, we've seen him be serviceable against teams like Iowa. We saw him against Maryland. Maryland was a little bit of a scare. What does that look like in a matchup against a huge team like Ohio State?
I have more confidence in Michigan's defense than I do in Ohio State's defense. So if Michigan can control the ball and they have the ideal combo in McCarthy and Corn, I think Michigan's defense can make some big plays, make some big stops. And now suddenly it's not necessarily a mismatch. I think a lot of people would come out and tell you, well, Ohio State and Michigan, as good as Michigan is, would be a mismatch. I mean, Ohio State can run up and down the field. They're so athletic. I think Michigan's defense would probably be the deciding factor in a Michigan win over Ohio State.
All right. You know what? I don't disagree with that one whatsoever. I'm excited for that game, and it's still 6 weeks away. November 26th. That's going to be what's that? The Saturday after Thanksgiving. That's
Mm-hmm.
going to be very interesting. I'm looking forward to that football game, and then we get Army Navy, very soon after that too. Which I'm excited for Army Navy as well. Michigan is a 22-point favorite in the matchup coming this Saturday against Indiana. Then they go and host Penn State, and probably their toughest remaining game, with the exception of Ohio State at the end of the year.